San Antonio, join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Shaun King.
San Antonio, what's up? Good to see you. So glad to be here. I'm glad it warmed up. I flew in from Brooklyn and it is 8 degrees right now in Brooklyn. So it's not quite warm, but it does feel pretty good right now. And so thank you all so much for being here. Happy MLK Day to each of you. We have to celebrate our own heroes, our own legends, and remember their history and their words. I have been to San Antonio, but it was so many years ago. My family moved from Atlanta to Los Angeles, and we made that cross-country trip. And we stopped in San Antonio, but that was many years ago. I don't even think Instagram existed yet when we made that trip. But I'm glad to be here as a leader. Thank you so much for inviting me. I do think you all have probably the most woke basketball coach in the NBA, and Greg Popovich. Greg keeps it all the way real, all the time. I never thought I would say this, but I'm actually friends with your new district attorney. And Joe Gonzalez, I have fought for most of my life against district attorneys. And district attorneys, if you don't know, really are the gatekeepers of America's justice system. And before Joe, you all had a very problematic district attorney, and Joe ousted that DA and is now your new district attorney. Now, we still have to hold him accountable as well, but he needs our help and our support. I met some of your new judges, and I want you to be proud because you did that. Like, there's something powerful, even when I was introduced, there's something powerful about having judges that you can touch, that know you, that you can see at the grocery store or around and about. And what we see all over this country is oftentimes the people who lead the criminal justice system don't know the people that they're convicting. And they're willing to throw them away and throw the key away and lock them up forever and ever because they're not related to them, they're not connected with them, they didn't grow up on the same block, in the same neighborhood. But now you have a district attorney, you have judges, and other people in this justice system that are one by one really trying to turn this thing around. I love San Antonio, but you already know this. There are problems in this city. Today I really want to speak very specifically, but the truth is when Martin and Malcolm each died, they were so close in philosophy and in practice in terms of how they saw the world. I want to share some quotes with you for a second, and then I want to teach a few lessons that I hope you can take with you. You know, some people, I even heard this today, I hear people sometimes say, Dr. King was more than his I Have a Dream speech. And I understand what people are saying when they say that, but actually there are some powerful parts of the I Have a Dream speech that they don't play on commercials, on television, that they don't play on TV before the Super Bowl. Here's one that I particularly want to read to you. This was in his opening paragraph, opening sentences to the I Have a Dream speech. It's powerful, listen. Dr. King said, in a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check. And when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now this is what I want you to hear. They don't play this part on TV. Dr. King said, it is obvious today that America has defaulted on its promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, listen to this, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. They don't play that part. I mean, in his I Have a Dream speech, the man said America has given black folk a bad check and that it has not fulfilled its promises to people of color. Dr. King continued, he says, but we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. The man literally said, we came here today to cash that check. Like when you think about it, when people say Dr. King was more than the I Have a Dream speech, he was actually more than the little part of the I Have a Dream speech that gets quoted. Yes, he talked about judging people by the content of their character, not just the color of their skin, but he also said America has written some folk a bad check. I didn't know this, but Dr. King talked about police brutality in his I Have a Dream speech. Listen to this. Dr. King said, in the I Have a Dream speech, there are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? And here's what Dr. King said to that question. We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. He said that in the speech. And so I hear people all the time. I literally saw on my own Instagram page today, somebody saying that Dr. King would be rolling over in his grave if he saw what we were talking about. It's like, you don't even know what the man was talking about. Foolishness. Listen to this. This is from Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham jail. This is powerful, and I don't mean to step on anybody's toes, but it's necessary for you to read this. And if you get an opportunity to read the entire letter from Birmingham jail, it is so powerful that in the 1970s, a group of theologians were asking that it be included in the Bible. Like, that's how profound the letter is. It was probably the most important thing he ever wrote. And listen to this section. Dr. King was in jail and he was heartbroken because a lot of people that he thought were going to come to his aid bailed out on him, particularly white Christian pastors there in the city. Dr. King said, first, I must confess that over the last few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I've almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the White Citizens Council or the KKK, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice. There's some people standing around here today that are here to keep order, but they're not really here for justice. Do you know what I'm saying to you? There's a lot of order here, but not enough justice, if you know what I'm saying.
Behind you, so I can get past you.
Speaking code to you. Dr. King said, the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. He says, I'm frustrated with the white moderate who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action. Who paternalistically feels that he can set our timetable for another man's freedom. Who lives by the myth of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait into a more convenient season. And he closed with this. He said, shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding of people of ill will. He said, lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. Profound. Dr. King was very much a radical, a revolutionary, but sometimes the way we present him dumbs down the full context of his words. Dr. King said in 1965, it is a crime for people to live in this rich nation and receive starvation wages. Do we have any federal employees that are here right now? It's a crime When I flew in yesterday, I was brokenhearted to see all the TSA workers at my airport in New York and right here in San Antonio who are working day and night and not being paid. My friend Dr. Ibram Kendi posted this morning some powerful messages from Dr. King. Let me read a few of you and then I'll close and teach you a few things. Dr. King said, listen to this. This is part of this type of thinking that really got Dr. King killed. He said, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is my own government. The greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is my own government. He went on to say, a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. Oh, you got some of your own, right? Thank you, thank you. One more. He said, I am convinced that if we are to get on the right side of the world revolution, we as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values, right? Dr. King understood that it wasn't just about electing Democrats or Republicans. It's deeper than that. It's about putting people in office that actually believe in you, care about you, and are going to actually fight for you once they get there. There's a big difference. Like there are sometimes as many useless Democrats as there are Republicans. And we have to hold them all accountable one by one. Now sometimes we do have to make difficult decisions and choose between the lesser of two evils. And when you have to do that, I don't believe in not voting. Still vote and use your power to vote. But we have to also put people in office who aren't afraid to actually act. I got a chance to speak to several of these new judges who are already making powerful decisions. Like, get to know them and understand them. I want to tell you a few stories, if you don't mind, and then I actually want to teach a little something that I think you can leave here with that will empower San Antonio. Like, if all of us who are here right now use our influence in some powerful ways, we can not only change San Antonio, but we can change Texas and change this whole country in powerful ways. I have a lot of, like you see, if you follow me on social media, it's funny when I travel because some of you have only seen my profile picture, so you're not used to seeing me walk and talk and actually move, because all you see are my words and stuff like that. I went to a high school event with I have 5 children. I went to high school with my teenage daughter, and I heard some parents and students whispering, and they said, there's @Shaun King, as if @ is a part of my first name. And I had the thought, like, no, I am not @Shaun King, I'm just Shaun King. @Shaun King is like a symbol on the internet. But when I think back over these past few years, fighting for justice, so often fighting for justice here in Texas, including right here in San Antonio, with horrible cases of police violence, police brutality, and you know these cases, and you know the names of people that have even told you, just wait for justice, wait for justice, wait for justice, and we waited for justice here in San Antonio, and it never came. That's part of why we hope that we can get something that looks more like justice with Joe Gonzalez in office. But there's so many things that I fought for and didn't get, and I want to tell you a painful lesson that I learned from a serious failure of mine. In 2014, I actually lived in California. I was living in Southern California. My family had just moved there from Atlanta. And I was working for this organization called Global Green. And a buddy of mine that I went to Morehouse College with, who lived back in New York, he emailed me a video, and the video had not, as a matter of fact, until this video, there had never been a viral video of police brutality. Like, we see these awful videos all the time now, but in the summer of 2014, we had never seen anything like that, unless you go all the way back to like Rodney King. But I'm talking about on the internet. And he sent me this video, and it was of a middle-aged black man on a street corner in New York, and my friend described what I was going to see in the video. And he said, Shaun, there's this middle-aged man, and he said, he's begging the police to leave him alone, and an officer comes up behind him and begins choking him like UFC style. And he said all of a sudden they wrestle the man to the ground, and the man starts yelling out, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And I'm at my job when I got this. You know, if any of you have a computer at your job, you know there's some things you can't click on when you're at your job because the people around you might not understand what you're looking at. And so I didn't even know if I was going to click on the link. And I clicked on the link, and there was the man that we later came to know as Eric Garner, who had just the previous day had just been choked to death by the NYPD. I was so disturbed by that video that literally just 2 weeks later, I quit my job at Global Green. 3 weeks later, Mike Brown was killed in Ferguson. 3 weeks later, a young brother named John Crawford was shot and killed at a Walmart in Ohio. 3 months after that, a 12-year-old boy named Tamir Rice was shot and killed just a few blocks from his park, outside of his mother's house, over Thanksgiving break. And I made two serious mistakes that I pledged I would never make again. And I continued to make these mistakes over 2014, 2015, and 2016. The first mistake I made was I thought, and it made sense at the time, I thought that if people saw the police brutality, the police would be held accountable. I thought if people saw it, we would get some accountability, because sometimes what was in those videos was so horrible and so awful and so clearly unjust that my thought was, if somebody sees this, somebody will be held accountable. It took me 3 years to realize that they don't care if it's on video or not. Like if it's on video, there might be a slightly better chance at you getting justice, but they don't care if it's filmed or not. The second mistake that I made was more personal. And I made that mistake several times right here in Texas. Over and over again, I would go and meet with families who had lost their loved ones to police violence. And if I'm speaking to a crowd this big, there's somebody here in this crowd today who's lost their loved one to police violence. And I would meet with several of these families, and I would say something, and I don't say it anymore. I remember looking a family who had just lost their child. He was a boy who had just lost their child to police violence. And I was right at their dinner table, and I told them, listen, hold on, don't worry, we're going to get justice for your family. And I believed it. I probably told 10 or 15 families that. Hold on, don't worry, we're going to get justice for your family. And when I told those families that, there wasn't even a single part of me that thought I was exaggerating. I believed it. I mean, there was a part of me, I knew how hard we were working. I knew what happened was not just wrong, but illegal. And I knew we were fighting in the right way to get justice. For the 15 or so families that I told that, not a single one of them got justice. And I had looked these families in the face and said, hold on, don't worry, we're going to get justice for you and your family. Come 2016, I told one too many families that just for myself. And I came here to Texas, outside of Dallas. I went to the house of the family of Jordan Edwards. Brilliant young brother who was a 4.0 student at his high school. And I sat down at their kitchen table, and I was about to open my mouth and tell that family, hold on, don't worry, we're going to get justice for your family. I just couldn't say it anymore. I told so many families that we would get justice that we never got. And as I looked Jordan's father in the face, I could not bring myself to tell one more family that we might get justice that we probably would not get. My friend Lee Merritt, who at the time was the attorney for the family, we decided that we were going to try to do everything different for that family to get justice. And over the past 2 years, I've changed a lot of my methods and strategies, and I've spent almost 2.5 years studying how you actually make change. And I want to tell you what I've discovered, and I hope you take it and run with it. When I close, I'll give you my email address. I want to support you. I want to support San Antonio for the causes and the things that you care about. There are 4 things that you need to make change. And we make a big mistake because we often get one of them and we think we're about to get change. So let me break it down. The 4 things that you need. The first thing is you need people, and they need to be energized. Now here's the good news and the bad news. Right now, this is a group of energized people. The good news is we know how to get energized people in the same place, going in the same direction. Energy can come in a lot of forms. Energy can be anger. Energy can be spiritual. It can be frustration. It can be hope. The first thing that you need to make change is you need people, and they need to be highly energized. And I don't mean a shallow energy. I'm talking about an energy that will allow you to last through failure, through pain, through mistakes, through controversy, through drama. I have to go through all of those things. And if you don't have enough energy to get you through those things, you'll quit really before the journey's even started. The good news is we know how to get energized people together. The second thing you need to make change, you need energized people, but the second thing you need is you need organized people. And often we are highly energized, but poorly organized. Now, many of you may say, no, I'm a part of a group that's highly organized. Then I'm not talking to you. But there are many here right now that would love to be more organized, and you aren't. And what I want to say, and it's a painful realization that I've had to come to, is often the people who are fighting against us are out organizing us. I had to come to that. There was a moment where I thought Ted Cruz was no longer going to be your U.S. Senator. Didn't you have that little moment as well? You know, there was a moment where I thought Andrew Gillum was going to be the next governor of Florida. Didn't you think that? There was a moment where I thought Stacey Abrams was going to be the next governor of Georgia. I believed it, and they believed it. More people voted for the other person. It's painful, but in some way, we were out-organized. Like, it's a race that you can win, but you have to out-organize your opponent. Let me tell you 2 ways to be organized. And if you don't have these 2, I don't think you're organized enough. The first is, do you know, like let's just say your row is an organization. Do you know who everybody on your row knows? Let me explain that a little bit. Oftentimes, we know who we need to know, and sometimes we don't know who we need to know, but everybody on your row might know that person. Sometimes the people in the room have the right relationships, but if you don't know who they know, you're not able to maximize and capitalize on those relationships. I'll give you a practical example. One time I was working for a case in New York, and for 2 months, we were trying to find somebody who knew a very important person, only to find out that somebody in our organization was related to the person. And for 2 months, we were scouring everywhere we could, only to find out that we had somebody in the room who was related to the person. What I'm saying is, I have a network, but she has a network, and she has a network, and he has a network. And when we combine our networks in smart ways, it makes us way more powerful if we share who we know. Here's another deeper way to be organized. Do you know the skills of the person on your row? Do you know the skills of the people you work with, the people you organize with? Because what I often see is when we organize, we get email addresses and phone numbers, but that doesn't tell me what skills you have. We need to understand who in this room that we're in, who do you know that might help us, and what skills do you have that might help us? And here's why I say that. We could be way more self-sufficient if we shared our networks and shared our skills. Am I making sense to you right now? You need to be highly energized. You need to be deeply organized. And if you're highly energized and deeply organized, you will get a little bit of change. You'll start to get some of it. But if you get this third thing right, you will be so close to getting significant, serious, deep, systemic change. You need energized people, you need organized people, and you need a plan that is more sophisticated than the problem. Do you hear what I'm saying? I'm going to tell on myself for a second, but I remember in 2015, I went and met a civil rights legend, and we had been fighting for justice for Tamir Rice. At the time, we were fighting for justice for Freddie Gray, for Sandra Bland, right here in Texas. And the civil rights legend that I met with, he was being kind, but right on the spot, he said, "Shaun, break down your plan for me on how you're going to get this justice." And I realized in that moment that I didn't really have a plan. I had a problem. And the issue is, we are often masters of our pain, but not masters of our plan. I see it all the time. I will travel from city to city, and I will meet with local organizers, and I will ask them what I was asked in love. Break down for me your plan. What are your strategies? And what I normally get is I will get them repeat back to me the problem. And many of us that are standing, that are sitting, we know the problem. We know the problem of police brutality. We know the problem of mass incarceration. We know the problem of discrimination and racism and bigotry. And we are literally experts in our problems. We have to somehow pivot from being experts in our problems to creating sophisticated plans to actually solve those problems. Let me explain this to you. America's criminal justice system is extremely sophisticated. And if you can write our plan on the back of a napkin, that plan is not going to solve that problem. And what happens is our plans consistently get overwhelmed by our problems. Here's what also happens. We will have energized people and organized people, and we will be ready to fight, and then something horrible will happen. A terrible case of injustice, a terrible case of violence or police brutality or a murder. Or Donald Trump will announce some outrageous policy that throws us into a tailspin. And if we keep moving from crisis to crisis to crisis without a plan that's bigger than the crisis, that's deeper than the crisis, we won't be able to measure our progress. I decided in 2017 that, and you don't have to make this decision, I want you to make a decision that makes sense for you. I decided of all the different things that I could do, that I was going to try to help get bad district attorneys out of office and put compassionate people in their place. Now, listen, all the district attorneys that we've elected, they're not all Black Panther, okay? Like, some of them are just good people. And they replace often monsters. Like, we have a criteria of who we will endorse, and they're not all super woke, super conscious. And when they aren't, we try to develop meaningful relationships with them to help them grow. But if we can take out the bad actors in the system and replace them with people that we know Like Grace, the judge who's here on the front row right now, who's here, people that we have a relationship with, who we can email and call and talk to and understand. Grace, she and I sat right here on this front row, and she told me that when young men come through her courtroom, she cares about them. Listen, I don't know if Grace is a revolutionary, but I know that she sat right there in that chair and told me that when young men come in there, her heart breaks. She told me right there that she tries to make sure they understand what their rights are. And that's different. I made a decision that I was going to drill down in one area and make a difference in that area. And I want you to make that same decision for yourself. It doesn't have to be the decision I made, but make the decision that makes sense to you. You need energized people, organized people. You need a sophisticated plan. Let me tell you, we got rid of a bad district attorney in San Antonio. We replaced it. I see some of y'all laughing. I hope he's not here. I hope you're not his cousin or something else. I'm sorry if you are, but he fooled a lot of people, right? And listen, some people talk the talk of reform. You have to look at their history. What will happen is people will learn our talking points and they know what to say to get elected, but you don't have to look at the talking point. Just look at what they did last year. Look at what they did 10 years ago. Have you actually been living the type of life that shows you care? We got a new district attorney in Philadelphia. We got a new district attorney in Portsmouth, Virginia. We got the first African-American district attorney in St. Louis County who ousted the DA who really refused to prosecute the cop who killed Mike Brown. Not only that, but on the first day that the district attorney in Philadelphia and St. Louis took office, they fired horrible assistant district attorneys in the office that were corrupt. And so when we have organized people, energized people, and sophisticated plans, we can get some change. But here's the last thing. You need energized people, organized people, sophisticated plans, and it takes resources. And here's what I'm asking you. I want you to put change, social change, in your budget. As much as you care about paying the power bill, the cable bill, and getting groceries, if we have and I know this, if we have organizations in San Antonio that are energized and organized and sophisticated, but they don't have any money, it really limits what they can do. And I'm not going to tell you or even recommend for you who you need to invest in, but I want you to make the decision that you are going to put change in your budget and support it in a real way. Listen, San Antonio, I believe in you. I believe in your potential to change this city. You're already doing it. And I hope what you just did in this past election and the change that you're fighting for, I hope you don't see that and get complacent, but that you see it and get hungry and say, if we can do that, we can double down and do it many more times. Listen, I have your back. If you need anything, reach out to me. I love you and believe in you, all right? Take care. Thank you.
Y'all give it up for Shaun.